In this video, we're going to look at solving literal equations. And really, a literal equation is basically a formula. So our goal here in solving these literal equations is just to manipulate a formula and solve it for a different variable. So right now we have the formula D is equal to RT. And the formula is solved for D. And we want to solve it for T. So we have to kind of think about undoing what's been done to the variable that we're trying to isolate. So we're trying to isolate the t. So we need to ask ourselves, what is happening with the t? Well, the r and the t are being multiplied because they're stuck together basically. So to undo multiplication, we would need to do division. So instead of multiplying by r, to get rid of that, we need to divide by r. Well, r divided by r cancels out on the right side, leaving me with just t. And then on the left side, I have d over r. So t is equal to d divided by r. Number 2, I is equal to PRT, and we want to solve the equation for R. So right now it's solved for I, and we want to instead isolate R. So we need to find our R. Here is our R. When we look at our R, we need to realize that what's happening to the R and the other variables, they're all being multiplied. So to get rid of to undo multiplication, once again, we need to do division. So we need to divide by the p to get rid of the multiplying by p, and we need to divide by the t to get rid of multiplying by the t. So we're going to divide both sides of our equation by pt. Well, on the right side, the p's simplify each other out and become ones, as well as the t's. That leaves me with just r on the right side, and on the left side I have I over pt. And so that's what my solution is. R is equal to I divided by pt. Now keep in mind that these don't always feel comfortable, because at this point in the algebra course, we feel much more comfortable working with numbers and letters, not just letters. Our next equation is ax plus by is equal to c, and we want to solve the equation for y. So here is the y. So before we actually solve this equation, I'm going to do a little side equation here at the bottom. I'm going to make the equation 2 plus 5y is equal to 12. So again, I'm solving for y, and it's basically in the same spot. So keep in mind that the 2 is kind of like the ax, and the 12 is kind of like the c, and the 5 is kind of like the b. Hopefully that will make sense to you. So if you were solving this equation, what would you do first? Well, you know that you would need to get your constants together, and so you would subtract 2 from both sides. Well, that eliminates the 2 on the left side, so now you have 5y is equal to 10. And if you were solving for y, the next thing that you would do is divide by 5. And then after dividing by 5, you find out that y is equal to 2. So the important thing to remember here is that we always add or subtract before we divide. So that's the same process when you are working with literal equations, or when you are solving formulas for a different variable. You always add or subtract first, and then the second step is to do division. Now, of course, if you have a fraction in the problem, you would want to get rid of denominators. So we are first, we are solving for y. So we want to see, is there a term that's added or subtracted to the term where the y is? Well, we have the ax that's being added to the by. So we need to get rid of this term ax. So the term ax is positive, so to get rid of it, we need to subtract ax from both sides. Well, the ax's eliminate or zero each other out on the left side. Let me draw my line, leaving me with just by on the left. And then when I look at it, I have a c and a minus ax. These are not like terms, and I'm not dividing, I'm subtracting, so I'm going to write them all on one line as c minus ax. Now I'm trying to get that y by itself, so the b is acting like the coefficient. Well, how do we get rid of coefficients? What's the next step after we add or subtract something away? The second step is to do division. So I'm going to divide both sides by b. Well, the b's eliminate or cancel each other out. So I'm left with y is equal to c minus ax over b. And that is my solution. Again, we're not big fans of or most people aren't big fans of literal equations because they just don't feel very good. All right, let's look at the next one. We have a is equal to 1/2 bh, and we need to solve for h. Well, this is all one term because there's no plus or minus on the right side. 1/2 bh is one term. So the first thing I want to do is I want to get rid of that denominator. So in order to get rid of a denominator of 2, I need to multiply both sides by 2. Well, on the left side of the equation, 2 times a is 2a. And then on the right side, the 2's eliminate each other. So multiplying by 2 and dividing by 2 eliminate. So what do we have? We have a 1 times a b times an h. Well, I don't need this 1 right here. There's no reason to have a 1 there because it's multiplied by the b and the h. So I'm just going to write bh. Well, now that I got rid of my denominator, I look to see is there anything added or subtracted? No, there's not. But there is a b that's being multiplied with the h that I'm solving for. So how do I get rid of multiplying by b? I would divide by b. So I'm going to divide both sides by b, which leaves me with 2a divided by b is equal to h. All right, number 5, we have p is equal to 2l plus 2w, and we're solving for l. So this is the term the variable we're solving for, and it's part of this term 2l. So remember, the step is always to add or subtract something away first before you would divide. Well, there is a positive 2w with that term that I'm trying to isolate. So it's a positive 2y, so I need to subtract 2w from both sides. So on the left side of my equation, they are not like terms, so I'm just going to write it as p minus 2w is equal to 2l. Now I'm trying to get the l by itself, and it's being multiplied by 2. So to undo multiplication by 2, I need to divide both sides by 2. So that leaves me with l is equal to P minus 2W over 2. Now I can leave that answer just like it is, or I can take that common denominator of 2 and write it under both terms. P over 2 minus 2W over 2 is equal to L. And when I do it in two separate terms, I can see that the 2's eliminate each other or reduce each other. So then my answer would be P over 2 minus W is equal to L. All right, so you can't just cancel the 2's in the first solution that we got, because that would not be correct. But if you want to do canceling, then you need to take that common denominator of 2 and put it under both terms. And the big takeaway with these literal equations is that you always want to add or subtract something before you divide. So think about, is there a term I could add or subtract away first? And if it's not, then I would do division. But you always add or subtract and then divide.